All right, welcome to Talking Investing. I'm Tom, and as always, this is not financial advice. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. This is a weekly update. This is the second last trading week of the year, and for the Bitcoin miners, I do believe it was actually the best week of the entire year. We have 1 week left. We'll see if we can beat it. Okay, so we're going to take a look at this last week. We're also going to take a look at a 10-week trend, a 23-week trend, and then, of course, we're going to take a look at what the Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin have done year to date. Again, we just have 1 week left in the year, so this year is almost complete, and this week was an absolute stunner. So Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody. This is a weekly edition, holiday edition. Let's take a look at what the Bitcoin miners did this week. Okay, so let's start on the 1 week chart. This is what Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners did this week. So this is the best week of the year. You can see the Bitcoin miners really took off, and when we dig into this chart, you're going to see it was the small cap, the nano cap Bitcoin miners in particular that have been lagging behind that just did some giant catching up this week. So this almost looks like a year-to-date chart. You're going to see some of these Bitcoin miners were up. One of them was up over 100%, but this is actually just what happened this week. So I want to start out by pointing out, you'll see Bitcoin, as always, in gold. Bitcoin had a nice week. It was up 3%, but we've been relatively sideways for about 2.5 weeks with Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin miners have been on an absolute tear. None more so than this week. So let's talk about it. Sphere 3D, or stock ticker NE, ANY, they were up 106% this week. Mawson was up 96% this week. It's going to be worth noting later, you're going to see these still are two of the worst performing Bitcoin miners on the year, even with these drastic moves up this week. Core Scientific, on the other hand, up 80% this week. This is the best performing Bitcoin miner on the year. We're going to take a look at that in a chart later. They are still in chapter 11. They're coming out sooner than later. That we've been getting a lot of information on that, but the run up this year has been just absolutely stunning. Stronghold, again, a nano cap stock, up 76%. Argo Blockchain up 68%. Those were all pretty much the microcap and nano cap stocks. Now we get into a few stocks that are some of the larger Bitcoin mining companies. Cipher's one of the top 5 Bitcoin mining companies by market cap and by production, and they were up 55% this week. Marathon is by far and away now the largest Bitcoin mining company as far as market cap goes and production goes, and they were up 46% just this 1 week. HUT, which is one of the larger by market cap, now over $1 billion, they were up 41% this week. Iris Energy was up 39%. Hive was up 39%. Those are all top 10 Bitcoin miners by market cap. BitDeer was up 29%. So you're going to see every single Bitcoin miner was green this week. It is worth pointing out, you're going to see at the bottom, there's only one Bitcoin miner that underperformed Bitcoin this week, and that was Bitfarms. So you're going to see on some of the other charts, Bitfarms has been on a massive run up. They did have a cool off this week in the week where everything else ran up and kind of caught up to them. Bitfarms and CleanSpark have been the two best performers really over the last 10 weeks coming into this week. So you'll see both of them are near the bottom of this list. Riot is actually underperforming a little bit versus its peers. Riot, just a month or a month and a half ago, was a larger market cap stock than Marathon, and they are now over $1.5 billion less than Marathon in market cap, and you can see this week contributed to that. While Marathon was up 46%, Riot was up only 14%. Still excellent performance. What gets lost in this is in a week where Bitcoin was up 3%, for the Bitcoin miner to be up 14% is still fantastic performance, but it pales in comparison to what the rest of the Bitcoin miners did just this 1 week. Now let's go to a chart of what's happening over the last 10 weeks. So we picked this period because Bitcoin essentially started to have a breakout about 10 weeks ago, and the Bitcoin miners, after months and months of behaving badly and having poor performance from a stock standpoint, started to turn and started to run. So when we look at this period, you're going to see Bitcoin is now in second last place. There's only one Bitcoin miner that's underperforming Bitcoin over the course of the last 10 weeks. And I will tell you, the 15 weeks prior to that, the opposite was true. Bitcoin continuously was outperforming the Bitcoin miners for several months. It was a very frustrating period. We're going to take a look at that chart next. Now you can see that situation has totally reversed. So in this 10 weeks, Bitcoin itself is up 63%. You'll see here in gold. So that's spectacular performance. But if we go to the top of this list, Mawson's up 267%. Marathon in this 10 weeks is up 246%. Again, this is the largest by market cap and the largest by production. So that is a gigantic move to the upside. This is another chart that looks like an annual chart. Most industries would be thrilled. This would potentially be the best industry in the entire stock market if this was the annual chart, but it's not. It's only the 10-week chart. When we get to the 1 year, you're going to see some spectacular results. CleanSpark up 238% in the last 10 weeks. Argo Blockchain up 237%. Bitfarms up 216%. So remember, Bitfarms was in last place this week, up only 1%, but you'll see that in the last 10 weeks, it was really one of the leaders. So it did have a little bit of a cool off, but that still leaves it up here in the 200+% club. Iris Energy had a big move this week, now up 175%. So I'll let you find your Bitcoin miner on this chart, but you're going to see these are now all in the green, and all of the Bitcoin miners at this point are performing well. Okay, this chart is of the last 23 weeks, and we picked that for a reason. This is from July 14th, 2023, so that was a Friday. Pretty much all the Bitcoin miners hit a local high on either July 13th or July 14th, and that was when Bitcoin hit its high for the year at that time at just under $32,000. From that time, for the next few months, the Bitcoin miners struggled big time. So we're now 23 weeks later. I just want to quickly show you, I'm going to go back 9 weeks in time and show you what this chart looked like, because it puts things in perspective as to what's happened over the last 9 or 10 weeks. Okay, so if we go back to October 20th, that was about 2 months ago. This was 14 weeks into this run. You're going to see, while Bitcoin was basically flat in those 14 weeks, just down 2%, the Bitcoin miners were mostly down somewhere between 50 and 70%. A few were performing a little better than that. The best performers were Core Scientific. It was still down 34%. DMG down 41%. You're going to see CleanSpark was down 43%. So this chart was extremely red. Nothing was green. Nothing was even close to green. But we did mention at the end of this week that it seemed like there was a turn in the Bitcoin miners. So we talked a lot about on this channel that 14 weeks into this run, all of these were deeply in the red. And I felt that there was a very good chance that a lot of these would turn green by the end of the year. Well, fast forward 9 weeks, and we're going to see that's exactly what has happened. CleanSpark is now up 72% in this period of time. We now see 4 Bitcoin miners that are performing better than Bitcoin. So this is a dramatic turnaround for the Bitcoin miners. CleanSpark still in the lead over the last 23 weeks, up 72%. Argo Blockchain up 68%. Bitfarms in third, up 52%. And now Marathon, the largest by market cap, up 48%. It is now exceeding Bitcoin's performance over this 23-week period. But you'll still see there's still 10 Bitcoin miners that are still not back to their July highs. And remember, Bitcoin was at around $32,000 at that point. Right now, currently, as I'm making this video, Bitcoin's at around $44,000. So Bitcoin is up significantly. There's still a lot of these Bitcoin miners lagging behind. And this is one of the reasons I'm tracking this chart, because if we look at the 1 week and we see some of these up 90%, 100%, you're going to see that even with that performance over the last week and the last few months, a lot of these still potentially have some ground to make up. They're still not back to where they were this summer. You're going to see in last place, TeraWolf is still 39% under where they were in July. RIOT Blockchain, the second largest Bitcoin miner, and for most of this year, it was the largest Bitcoin miner by market cap. It's still not back to its summer high. It's still off 7% from where it was in July of 2023. So as I always talk about when we show these charts on the weekend update, I look for opportunities in here. If there's a company down here that's in the red, or even some of these that are up 8 or 11 or 17%, this is still dramatically underperforming what Bitcoin has done in that same period of time. So if you have a high level of conviction in one of these stocks, to me, these could potentially still represent opportunities. So obviously not financial advice. The purpose of these charts is to look for trends and to look for opportunities. So I try to point these out as we go along. Okay, so lastly, before we look at the Bitcoin chart itself, this is year-to-date performance for Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. So the first thing you're going to see is there is nothing left in red. There are no Bitcoin miners that are down on the year. This is the first week of the year that is true. It took all the way to the second last week of the year to get all the Bitcoin miners back into the green. So I'll start out, you'll see at the bottom of this list, I have the NASDAQ, which had an absolutely spectacular year. So even in a year where this is one of the great years for the NASDAQ, up 44% is extremely strong performance. Even the worst Bitcoin miner on the group as far as stock performance goes is outperforming the NASDAQ. So 100% of the Bitcoin miners outperformed the NASDAQ this year. You're going to see 3 of these Bitcoin miners I have in blue. And that is because these 3 Bitcoin miners just last week, these were in the red year to date, meaning they were negative coming into this week. So these were the last 3 holdouts that were in the red for the year, and you can see just in 1 week, these went from negative to any being up 52%, Mawson being up 67%, Stronghold being up 83%. So these had gigantic moves this week, and we saw that on the first chart that we looked at. Having said that, these 3 stocks and GREE up 106%, these are still underperforming Bitcoin year to date. Bitcoin is now up as of Friday 164% on the year. I want to go to the other side of this list. We have Core Scientific, which is a little bit of an outlier. This was in chapter 11 all year this year, but it is up 1,600% year to date. That's a 16x. So a lot of times when you see a lot of these sensationalized thumbnails and you hear a lot of channels talking about, can a stock 10x or 20x, typically for the most part, that's usually considered clickbait and a pretty unrealistic expectation. But you're going to see here with the Bitcoin miners, we have a lot of these companies that have already 5x'd or 6x'd, and we have one that has 16x'd. This is not new for the Bitcoin miners. Last time around, the Bitcoin miners had gigantic moves, 40, 50, 60x. One was over 100x. So this can happen. And obviously, we don't know what the future holds. Each one of these cycles is different. We don't know if this cycle is going to be, as good as the last cycle or the previous cycles, but there is reason to believe that there's still potentially, even with these monster moves up, that there's still potentially room to grow for some of these Bitcoin miners. But I would caution you, this chart is worth taking a look at. Marathon, which is the largest by market cap, they're up 681% this year. Cypher, which is over $1 billion market cap, they're up 620% this year. Bitfarms, 580%. Iris, 570%. BitDigital, 550%. Cleanspark's up 483% on the year, and there is 1 week left in this year. So while I do think some of these companies, and I am invested in some, not financial advice, I do think some of these companies have a lot of room left to the upside, but it is worth maybe taking a pause and reevaluating and taking a look. 500 or 600% runs in 1 year those are gigantic moves to the upside. So I would just tell everybody, we talk a lot on this channel about having an investment strategy. So understand, if you hold one of these stocks, what is your strategy? Up 500%, up 600%. What if these get up 1,000%? You should know or have a plan on what you want to do. Do you plan on holding these through to the peak of this cycle? So I just want to reiterate, it's always important to have a plan with these stocks because it does get very difficult after gigantic runs like this. You want to be thoughtful and be careful and invest wisely. By the same token, I want to say congratulations to everybody who stuck with these stocks through 2022 and through, a 2 or 3 month period in the middle of 2023 that was just brutal. If you stuck with these stocks, you can see there was a gigantic payoff for the vast majority of these Bitcoin miners. Lastly, just to take a quick look at the Bitcoin chart itself, I just want to point out, you're going to see on December 5th, we reached $44,000 for Bitcoin. We're now about 18 days into trading sideways. We have several days that we candle wicked up to or above 44,000, but we have not had a daily close yet above this line at $44,192. So we're a few weeks into going sideways. Oftentimes, like right here, this represents a potential opportunity. Consolidation like this could move to the next lead up. So in the event that that happens, one of the things that I'm looking for is if we can get a daily candle close that can break out of this range, that can break above this line of resistance, you're going to see a line at $48,240. Bitcoin went on a run back in March of 2022, and it peaked at $48,240. So I do think that is the next price target for Bitcoin. I don't know when we're going to get there. From where we are right now to there is just about a 10% move to the upside. So that is not a gigantic move. That is not out of reach. So the question is the next 10% up? Is the next 10% down? In the meantime, I do think we can expect to run into this line of resistance and finish out this consolidation period. There's just over a week left in the year as I'm making this video, so the clock is running out to hit this target in 2023. But of course, remember, it's always possible that we do pull back and retest some previous lines of resistance and turn them into support. Conversely, I do have a line down here just under 38,000. That would represent about a 13% pullback. If things go the other way and we do a little retest, I think we'll find some some support at was previous resistance. So that's what I'm looking for Bitcoin in the short term. Just to sum up, this was the best week of the year from a performance standpoint for the Bitcoin miners in a year where there was outstanding performance throughout. So just one last congratulations to everybody, and please everybody enjoy your holiday season and be safe, and we will see you in the next video.